Alright, hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to yet another video. Hope you've been doing fantastic. It has been a while, but I'm finally back. Today I want to talk about something interesting that I just noticed with Samsung. So I want to talk about three things in this video. First, Samsung throwing away brand equity from the Note line, which I'll get into. Second being the fact that nightography is now a marketing angle. I want to talk about how strong that is, whether it makes sense from a technical perspective, and my thoughts on it as a photographer and videographer. And the final thing I want to talk about is Samsung's grand strategy, the overall direction that I think they are moving in, and why this whole rebranding from the Note to the S22 Ultra, this more general lineup, is kind of a weird move for me. Alright, so let's talk about the first thing that I find strange with Samsung. That is the fact that they threw away brand equity from the Note line in favor of making a more generalized product. So brand equity is a pretty simple concept to understand for those of you who are not familiar with the term. Very, very simply, in layman's terms, brand equity is the extra amount of value, sometimes intangible and often unseen, that a product commands or has because of its brand, what people feel about it, how people see the company who has made this product. Or sometimes it's the product itself. If you market a certain product, a certain line for a very long time, and people start to build an association with that line, with a word for example, maybe a note, then there is brand equity in that Note name. And the interesting thing here is that I think a lot of people who care about productivity, who always cared about, that S Pen, I think that whole image has been pretty well solidified by Samsung in many people's minds. And the whole idea of just throwing that away in favor of a more generic S line kind of lineup is a little bit of a strange move for me. The way I see it, the Note line was specifically for professionals, right? That was always how it was marketed. Currently, what it feels like is almost like the Note history is kind of being brushed under the desk, and in my opinion, that doesn't sit too well with a lot of people. Of course, on the technical side, it is still a Note. I still think the features on a technical level are great, but it just doesn't give that same feeling as owning a phone that's called a Note. Alright, so the second thing that I want to talk about that I find strange with what Samsung is doing is the idea of using nightography as a marketing angle. Now on the surface, this is just another company using their latest feature to promote their product and make it seem like the most revolutionary invention of all time. And that's pretty common. The strange thing, and what I find hard to believe, hard to swallow if you will, is the whole idea that nightography actually changes night photography on a phone that much more than before. Aaron from Mr. Who's the Boss did a great video on this. He compared the S22 Ultra to the iPhone 13 Pro Max and did a camera comparison, and you can see that at night, while the images are brighter, they are still not as sharp and often just not as objectively good images. What they're doing is, first of all, layering a ton of images together, so they are taking more of the same images and then stacking them together and kind of adjusting them to make the overall image a little brighter. And another one of their cool innovations is using a larger pixel on their sensor. Now this goes a long way in allowing each pixel to receive more light and thus expose the image a little more, making it brighter. But what it also does is sometimes kill clarity or detail. And while I do agree in many cases that a larger pixel is better, in the camera world, really expensive, for example, Red cameras or really expensive RE cameras, RE Alexas, they have not that much resolution. I think sometimes it's quite lackluster compared to the 8K, the 4K that we see, but they do have really big pixels, and in that case it works, it exposes for great shots in your movies. But I think for the mainstream consumer, I think for, you and me, for the most part, on our smartphones, a larger pixel is just, it's a nice to have, but it doesn't exactly revolutionize night photography. I want to mention that their AI is extremely strong, and I do have to give Samsung credit for that. I've been looking at it, and I think it's really great how they're processing images, fantastic. But I think in terms of the whole nightography as a marketing angle, a little bit exaggerated. It's not that great. And the fact that they used this whole, brighten up your whole world kind of concept from the beginning, the pre-trailer for the Samsung announcement event, kind of puts too much emphasis on a feature that isn't really that revolutionary if you think about it. Now, the final thing that I find a little weird with what Samsung is doing is their overall direction in terms of product and in terms of tech. They're definitely trying to consolidate a little bit, focus more on the Z series, which is all their foldables, and then just keep the S line to be their main flagship line. And I think that for the most part makes sense. I would have loved to see, a notebook, literally a product just called a notebook, which would be, something in the Z line, which would be a note, but you could, kind of use like a fold. I suppose that's what the fold is. Again, throwing away that brand equity was kind of strange because it kind of closed quite a bit of doors for them. One of the things that I find really strange with Samsung stepping back from this whole workspace, executive, productivity-oriented phone, that is the Note, is that in other parts of the mobile business, right, we're talking about Chromebooks, right? They have their Galaxy books. In terms of monitors, they're actually focusing quite a decent bit on this exact audience that they're stepping away from. So you might not know this, and it hasn't become too mainstream yet, but Samsung, I think, is in their second or third year of production for their Chromebook equivalents, and these are meant to be, productivity machines. They're meant to kind of rival the MacBook and the MacBook Pro, the whole lineup, which you've seen, is definitely geared towards the power user, the heavy user. And so it's strange that you would take away the Note, which a power user would probably appreciate, and then throw it under the S line, but still try to focus on capturing them with other productivity-oriented products. I think Samsung has shaken things up quite a little bit. It's a cool company, they're still innovating, they're still creating great products, they're working on incredible chips and a lot of different innovations, but I think in terms of the product lineups and the overall vision, it's a little bit lacking right now. That is it for this video. Hope you liked that little bit of an analysis, a little bit of bringing in different ideas from different places, looking at overall brand strategy, what Samsung is doing, and just taking a look at some pretty cool tech. That is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it educational and perhaps informational. If you learned a thing or two, you love ideas and you love learning different concepts regarding business, tech, marketing, and the like, do give a thumbs up and please subscribe. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.